Okay, so we are live. So part of the instruction says to do a synopsis of the case, and so I'll do that real quick. So it has to do with Simon York. He's kind of causing some troubles at was it a design company? Is that?
It was like the design department of a food company. Like they were designing the packages and stuff.
And he got promoted recently, but he wasn't managing his team very well. And there was a couple incidents with him yelling at the production team and also correcting one of his team members in front of a big group. And Mary, his supervisor, has to give him some guidance. Well, I understand. Does that sound pretty good to you guys?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I understood.
Okay, so one of the questions on the agenda is what is the issue? And I think we've kind of already talked about that. Is Simon's there's a couple of issues, but what are the specific behaviors that raise concern?
Well, I think just the big one is how he handled the experience with what was that lady's name? Shelburne. And just how he went down into the production and just yelled at him and freaked out, basically. And I kind of think that the first instance where he corrected one of the people on his team, I don't think she was like super concerned about that, just because it was a high stress situation. But I think once another thing came up, she was kind of starting to get a little worried that he did seem qualified for the job, for the position that he got, but he might not be able to handle the stress of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it talked on the second page about how Mary Griffin thought that maybe when he acted out during the presentation, it was to like establish his authority.
Yeah.
But then it happened again. And I think with the situation where he was doing the presentation, I think everything was fine until he looked directly at the person whose fault it was and said, like, well, it's a good thing this is an internal meeting because you really would have messed this up. Like, I think it's okay to say that, but not in front of everyone at this meeting. And he probably could have said it a little nicer, too.
Yeah, I thought he was really strong what he said. He said this would definitely be a career-limiting move.
Yeah.
Whoa. One little mistake is not going to dampen a career. But yeah, I think you guys hit it right on the head. He correctly identified the issues. He saw that there was an error, or the production team did need to do it a little bit better, the design, but he just went about everything wrong. That's how I saw it. He just disregards people's emotions, I guess. He doesn't understand, correcting them in front of everyone is embarrassing. It breaks that trust you have with them. They don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It made me, just talking about this right now, made me think, I don't know if you guys have taken a chance to look at that Harvard workbook for discipline or whatever, but it gives like 4 steps in it. And I was writing my case study on how Griffin should discipline him using those 4 steps. But in reality, like, he was disciplining his employees without using those 4 steps. And that's kind of where he went wrong.
Yeah. And another thing, like, he doesn't even like realize that he did something wrong, because when he hears about her wanting to meet with him, he's like, oh sweet, I can talk to her about more business stuff. He like has no clue that he even like there was even an issue.
Yeah, exactly.
And you guys kind of mentioned it earlier, he was just in a high stress environment. He's just barely been promoted. He wants to impress his superiors. It's a big client. He wants a good reputation so they'll come back. he has that track record of being very attentive to detail. That's why he got the promotion, is because he stood out in that. But I think, honestly, there was a lack of training from his superiors. They gave him his promotion, but it didn't sound like he was instructed well, or, a lot of places they have trainings that they go to help build those management skills. And so that was actually part of my case, or my summary or whatever. One of the solutions was that, he attend, management training classes, just because, yeah, he's a great employee, but he doesn't have any experience managing. He's great at what he does, but, it's obvious he's lacking some skills on how to manage his team.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you say that, because when you read the paragraph about him being the assistant brand manager and working for the brand manager who retired and that's why he replaced him, it talks about how York was trying to do social media marketing and innovative advertising. He was the one staying up to date on the things that were going on. And the manager that he was working for before was, I feel just going for a classic approach, because, he recently retired, so he must not have been all that educated in social media and the way all of that works. And so maybe people felt like he didn't really need a training because he was kind of carrying the team already.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I think that York is definitely qualified for the position based off of his knowledge and the way, his work ethic. I agree with, I agree totally that he needs to, he needs some training, just because his leadership style is fear, which that works to get people to do the job while you're there. But as soon as you're gone, they're going to slack off. They're going to find ways around it. And I've noticed in jobs that I've been in, or times where I've had leadership opportunities, if you lead out of fear, the people are just going to look for ways to get away with things. Just because they don't love you. They just want to make you happy when you can notice them.
Yeah, and that actually brings us to kind of the next question is, what is the culture at Derby Foods? And kind of what you've been saying is, at least inside his team, in York's team, it's not that good. I mean, he's leading out of fear. People aren't meshing. They don't enjoy working for him. They do their job, but long term, that's not going to function. People are going to leave. People are going to, move to different team, or ask to be reassigned or something like that. You guys have any other thoughts about the culture there?
Well, just that, the way that the Shelburne person reacted, John, this wasn't how it normally was. Nobody came down there and instilled fear in everybody. The past person in that situations very well. So I think the overall culture with Derby Foods is one where people work together and they overcome issues and stuff like that in a calm manner. But then you have this work dude coming in and he's just flies off the handle, and that's not what they're used to.
Yeah, I think it does say a lot about the work environment over the fact that just this one, well, there were 2 incidences, but just this one with the advertising floor where he went down and said the X isn't the right size or whatever, he did react, he kind of blew it out of proportions. But the fact that John came up to Mary and expressed it makes it super obvious that that's not the environment of the work at all.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think it was Mary described what she was thinking about York in the past when he was working under the old manager. She said that the manager in York, they had a really good relationships, and you kind of mentioned how he was innovative and things like that. But I thought it was interesting how the old manager really took time to build and consider what York was doing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that York could do for his team. maybe have one-on-ones where they talk about, new ideas, new projects, or, the management style that they're going through. I mean, at first it may be a little awkward because of the current relationship that they're having, but I think over time, York would, grow those people function, because some people function great out of fear. That's just how you can't get results from them except by fear. But other people, they curl up in a ball when there's pressure and things like that. And you may have to be a more of a nurturing manager than the fearful manager. And it has to adapt to each employee. And I think he's just kind of lacking how to manage his team members, each team member.
Yeah, that kind of like, I just have one last point to make about the environment, and it's that Griffin notices that York's team isn't performing at the same level of like enthusiasm and like readiness, and it was obvious that people were uncomfortable, and it was just from those two incidences. And so that speaks so loudly about the change in environment from the previous manager to York.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree here as well. The next question would maybe be, what is the team member's role in establishing and maintaining the culture? I know we've talked a lot about York, but what do you think the team members could do? And I didn't talk about this much at all in the paper I wrote, but what are your guys' thoughts? Did you guys consider that at all?
No, the one thing I considered that was like what York could do, and it was like trying to put himself in the team members' shoes. But I guess it goes vice versa too. Like the team members could try to put themselves in York's shoes and see that he's been put in a new position and he's been promoted, and he did so well in his last position. He feels like he needs to fill those shoes. And I think like an environment where everyone is trying to see each other's perspective really takes out the conflict, because everyone's trying to understand each other, and then you can decide together because you see each other's sides. I think that conflict arises most often when you feel like your side of whatever is going on isn't understood or isn't seen.
Yeah, I agree with that. I kind of feel like the York kind of overreacted with like the error, in my opinion. Like, errors happen. It was an error on one of the slides. Like, it's not like his information was wrong. It's not like there was something like a huge issue. There was just an error on one of the slides, and he just said there's no excuse for this error. It should not have happened. So I feel like the Durham dude, the assistant brand manager, who it says he prepared the analysis, he took like the responsibility for the error and apologized. I kind of feel like it's York's like responsibility to like oversee that, like to go through it beforehand. If he's the one presenting this presentation, he should have gone through it beforehand. So it's kind of York's fault just as much as it is Durham's. So I don't know if I was Tim Durham, I mean, I would have gone to York afterwards and said, hey man, I'm sorry, but I feel like he tried to take the pressure off of York himself during the meeting, and that kind of backfired on him.
Yeah, no, I hadn't thought about that. Or, at least in that sense of, York was really blaming someone else. He wasn't taking responsibility for his team. I mean, that's kind of a bad sign of a leader, is blaming someone below them when it's your team you're responsible of. That's a good point.
Yeah, that was super interesting, Tyler.
But it also says after that it says York regrouped and presented some innovative branding and marketing ideas that were acknowledged by some of the more experienced brand managers. After that, they all got it together. I mean, I'm sure York wasn't the only one with the ideas and stuff. His team came back, they didn't have the same level of enthusiasm. I mean, they were able to present, which in my opinion, makes it even more frustrating that York overreacted to the extent he did, because they were able to move on and come up with some really great ideas. Successful meeting.
Yeah. So now looking kind of at Mary as she is the supervisor of York, what approach should she take in that discussion she has with York?
I mean, I had expressed earlier that in my case study, I wrote about how, okay, I just want to go over those points real quick. So the points that were highlighted in the Harvard article were that he needs to be direct, identify the specific behavior, state the impact, and provide caution for that person. And so I said that she needed to be direct in like highlighting what he did wrong. And then in identifying the behavior and stating the impact it had, I said that she should have him picture himself in his employee's shoes. Especially like for short-term and long-term impacts. I feel like short-term, obviously everyone's enthusiasm is down, but long-term, if I was working in that kind of environment, I would feel lack of confidence in the results that I provide as an employee. You know, I wouldn't want to make a presentation anymore. I would be scared to do things for the department because I would be worried about being called out in front of everyone. And so I think because he was in a position like them before when he was the assistant brand manager, even though he had a good relationship with his manager, I guess I would put him in the shoes of when you were an assistant brand manager, how would you feel if the manager was yelling at you for an error that you made in a presentation? Or how would you feel working in an environment like that long term?
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest part of that, those 4 points, is the caution. Like, I mean, York's not a bad employee. He has a lot of great qualities, and he's good at his job. The case study makes that very clear, that he's good at his job, and he comes up with some really innovative ideas. So it's not him as the person that did anything wrong. Well, he did do something wrong, but it's not him that is wrong. It's what he did that was wrong. The way he reacted, the way he handled the situations, those were wrong. He's not a bad person. He's not a bad employee. He's probably not even a bad leader. It's just those interactions were the wrong way to.
Yeah, I go along with what both of you guys were saying. I think the kind of what Lexi was saying is be direct in identifying the issue, and then I like how you said take it from the employee's perspective, and then even for more long term, I thought it would be appropriate that Mary have one-on-one time with him,
like
just to go over, yeah, long term to visits. I don't know. I thought both York should have one-on-one with his team, and then Mary should have one-on-one with him, just to talk about, any concerns that York has, because he is a new manager. He needs to be trained, and if something comes up that he is unfamiliar with, or kind of just needs some guidance on what to do, he should be able to freely go to Mary and seek advice, because she's a seasoned employee, a seasoned manager. She is more familiar with how to deal with circumstances like that. And so, again, I kind of want to push the blame a little bit on the upper management. It's not all of York's fault. There hasn't been a lot of guidance for him.
I agree completely, and I feel like I don't think it said this in the feedback and coaching workshop, but part of correcting somebody, actually I think it says it in the scriptures, is being prompt about it. When you notice an issue, when you notice a problem, to bring it up immediately. And Mary saw Mary was in the meeting when York reacted the way he did. It was her responsibility to have the conversation with him then, instead of after another issue arose. She was not prompt about that at all. I mean, she even noticed it. She noticed that his employees were not enthusiastic. They were looking down. They were trying to avoid him after that. So, I mean, it's kind of on Mary as well. After that instance, the way that York conducted himself as a leader, because I mean, one instance he gets away with it. Now he feels like that's a leadership style that is going to, because no one cared.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. It wasn't until Mary was addressed by her boss, which was it Shelburne John Shelburne, until he said something to her like, "You need to do something."
Yeah.
You're over him. You need to do something. So, great insight.
So I kind of took consideration into like even past long term, like what if these visits in the long term aren't like changing anything? Like what if York continues to do this? I tried to think of like what the proper discipline would be for that, and I came to the conclusion that since he performed so well in his previous position, that maybe he should just be demoted back to that position if he can't get things under wraps.
No, that's exactly what I thought.
You thought the same thing? I thought the same thing, but I thought that would look really bad for him. He just got promoted and he's demoted.
But
honestly, if that happened to me, I would leave. It's like, you gave me a promotion, now you're taking it away. I'm gonna go work somewhere else.
But like he's not saying do that right away.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, long term, if it doesn't resolve, definitely something should be done. And the solution I came to for that is, let's not demote him, but he's really good at like analyzing things and finding errors and new ideas. Maybe they could tailor a new position where he does just that. He's over. He doesn't work with the team. He works more of just with himself, and maybe he reviews some of the other team's new ideas or things like that. So if he can't learn how to manage his team, let's still utilize his assets of being detail oriented and things like that. But they may have to do a little restructure, and that's my dad. The reason I thought of that is because that kind of happened to one of the employees that my dad managed. Is he just didn't get along really well with the team he was on, and so they kind of separated the team into two parts, and he did what he was really good at, and the rest of the team just kept doing the rest. And it's a solution. I don't say it's the best solution. I mean, I would say York should develop those skills so that doesn't have to happen, but I thought that was better than demoting him.
Yeah. But like, I know my dad is like a manager of a company that he works for too. And I know that like when he's faced with situations where he gives a job to an employee and long term they're incapable of complying with like the requirements and like how that person needs to be for that job, he can't really consider how the employee is going to feel or how it's going to look for the employee. He needs to consider how it looks for the company.
Yeah, that's true.
Like that would be so hard, but.
Well, it also reflects like how it looks on them personally. Like for Mary, she's the one that promoted him to this position. How does it look on her if he's going to be like reacting in this way? I'm sure the other, because it sounded like there was veteran brand managers in there as well in that meeting. I mean, they're going to be looking at her like, you promoted this guy? Like, this is kind of a joke. Like, why is he handling this way? But yeah, because in my write-up, I wrote that he performs amazing at his job. There's no lie that he can come up with really great ideas, and he's really good at his job. It's just the high stress environment of being over a team and being in more of a upper position might be too much for him. And I think Colton had a really good idea, kind of tailoring a position for him, because I do think he earned more responsibility than what he had before. I don't feel like he needs to have somebody directly over him in that capacity, but I don't know. I mean, if it's a long-term problem, I don't know if he should have guests to work with, because he's kind of proven that he doesn't work well over people. He kind of uses unrighteous dominion. Yeah. Sorry, I'm going to the scriptures all over.
That's all right. So, I mean, we've kind of talked about some of these other prompts, like what recommendations for discussion. We've talked about that. One thing I would do that, you know, I felt has helped me, when I worked with my old boss, we had weekly one-on-ones just for, you know, like a half hour. And we talk about any questions I had and things like that. But he would relate personal experiences. And I thought maybe Mary could do that. Say, you know, when I first started managing, I had this struggle, you know, and so helped me with this, or, you know, I did this to cope with this. And so, and we kind of talked about, you know, more training, but maybe Mary could share some personal insights. That way it's a more friendly environment. It shows that she's willing to open up to him. She cares about him and wants him to do better. And you know, if he's really good at what he does, you know, if he can learn these management skills, you know, maybe there's potential for him moving up as well. And I wanted Mary to express that, saying, we want you to learn and grow so you can contribute more to the company.
Yeah, I think that would. Oh, go ahead.
Well, because if Mary brings him in and just goes off on him, then she's no better at handling situations than he is. Like, yeah, she does it in private, but like if she just says like, you're not cut out for this job, we're demoting you, like all this stuff, he's gonna be like, what the heck? Like, you're doing the same thing that I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that if she incorporates her like past experiences into the discipline, it'll make him more receptive of the things that are going on. I feel like, I don't know, I just recently got home from a mission, so like the only things I can think of are from my mission. And like whenever we would do companionship inventory and I had something that was really bothering me in the companionship, I knew I could best confront it by explaining like how I've been in their shoes before, and like explaining a situation that I had previously in my mission and helping them like see how I was able to fix it. And then like we could work on that together as a companionship.
Yeah, that's a really great idea. That's, I have 2 brothers on missions right now. Like it's funny to see like they have like the same issues that I had. Like one of my brothers, he has a companion that just doesn't want to work. Like he just sits in bed for like all morning long, doesn't do his personal study. And I was like, you just have to like show your example. And so like, I had companions like that too. And so that's exactly how like, and I remember companionship inventories and how that's how I handled most of them as well. Like, and that's how I handle like talking to anybody. I feel like that's a great way to lead into something, to say, hey, I've had this same issue. I had to work at it, and so like that. This is how I did it. And I mean, you can even say like, this might not be the way that you need to do it, but this is how I overcame it. And that just gives them ideas. Then the wheels are turning in their head, thinking, okay, this is how they did it. I work a little bit differently, but that's a good like direction for me to go.
Yeah. I know, especially for like girls, we feel super attacked when like the problem is addressed and like no one tries to relate to us. And so that's like why I saw so much success with it in my mission. And I mean, I'm sure guys are pretty much the same, but like if someone's going to point out the things I'm doing wrong, I'm going to point out what they're doing wrong too. And then it would just turn into like this whole, like, I don't know, it makes me think of the story where the Pharisees brought the adulterous woman to Christ and were like, what do you think of this? And Christ was like, let him who is without sin cast the first stone. Like, if we're not trying to relate to the person and explain that we've like messed up too and like things like that, then the person won't want to be receptive to us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing too is if we confront Simon about these issues and he becomes like distanced from it, he's like, oh, well, if you're going to critique me, well, I'm just not going to critique anybody. And then he just kind of doesn't do anything because
from one extreme to the other.
Yeah, he goes from dominating everything to, it's like, oh, if I can't manage you guys the way I want to, I'm not gonna do anything. Do whatever you want, make mistakes. So
you do.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't go that way for him. But what are some other things? I mean, we talked about if he doesn't improve, demoting him or finding a different position, or what are some other worst case scenarios? Do you think he'll react well or differently? And if so, how do you think he'll react, and what would the solution be for that?
Like other ways that he could change, or?
How do you think he'll react? Like if Mary says, "Hey, we want you to improve," and then is he going to be resentful, or is he going to be upset, or is he going to take it great? I mean, what do you guys think?
I think it would be a good idea for Mary Griffin to start the meeting off talking about like the new advertising and stuff like that, because that's what he thinks he's going in to talk about, and she probably doesn't necessarily know that, but she also probably shouldn't call him in and just get down to business about things that aren't working out. And so I feel like, what?
Could you say that again? My sound just went all sketchy.
Oh, yeah.
Could you say that again?
Yeah, of course. I was just saying that I think Mary, when she calls him in, she needs to, because she doesn't know Griffin thinks she's calling him in about the new advertising, but I think it would still be appropriate for her to talk about something else other than the things he's doing wrong. Like, she shouldn't just call him in and get right down to business about what's going on. I feel like it would be good for her to recognize the efforts he's making as a member of the company, or as an employee of the company. And then I feel like if she approached it in that way and then confronted the situations that were going on, that he would be a little more receptive to it, because his work has been recognized and the work that his department is doing has been recognized, and she can express her thanks for it. And then he would be like more receptive to the discipline or whatever she talks to him about. And I also put that I just lost my train of thought, so that's it.
No, and kind of taking it back to like along those same lines, and taking it back to like companionship inventory. When you're talking about like things you as a companionship can do better, you start out with positive things. You say like 2 things that are positive, and then you talk about the things that you guys need to do better on. And I feel like if Griffin opens up that meeting saying, "Hey, that meeting we had, a lot of the brand managers get really excited about the ideas and energy that you brought to this role," and stuff like that. And because I mean, it points that out. And so just kind of giving him praise on the things that he is good at before going into what he needs a little bit of work on. I mean, it's going to melt him right down. And I feel like, because York sounds like the kind of guy that might overreact in that kind of situation. And so I think it's a great idea to, say that these are some really great ideas. This is what you did really great on. Let's talk about this for a second and say, now, it's one thing I just wanted to address. And then, it might be a super simple fix. York might just be like, you know what? Yeah, I was super stressed out. It was my first meeting. It was the first, this is my first big project. I just want to do it right. You're right. I need to ease up on everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you know what? Going back to something that Colton said earlier about him getting more training, I think also it would be good if, and more receptive for York if Mary went into it with an offering of hey, what can the company do to help you adjust to this new environment and this new workload you have? And then they could address the problem, and then they could revisit that question, what can the company do? And part of that probably would end up being better training for the position.
And one thing I was just thinking, if you were going to train York more, why not do a full team training? That way, because I know at a lot of management, or I assume at a management meeting, they talk about management skills and how to apply them to your employees. But I'm sure there has to be some sort of meeting where they talk about how employees can be receptive, where they can incorporate it more as a team like, yeah, you need these management skills, but as a team, you need to, you know, learn your roles, individual roles, and how that can be managed differently. So not just him getting more training, but as a team, and, you know, maybe that'll bring more unity. You know, if they all get that way, you know, if they talk about anger in work, when I was reading this, I thought of The Office with Andy Bernard. I don't know if you guys watched The Office and how he got angry and went to anger management training. I was just thinking, you know, if they talk about those situations in as a team, you know, how should we deal with this situation if an employee does this or something does that? That way they can be open, you know, say, oh, Frank, you know, this one time you did this and it was really good, but then another time, you know, Joe did this and it didn't work out. That way they could be open about, you know, what's been going on in the past and maybe make suggestions openly in the future.
Like a team inventory kind of thing.
Yeah, like a team inventory. Yeah, it's just companionship, a team. You know?
That's a good idea, and it would definitely help York feel less attacked. I mean, it would help him, and he'd probably be even more on board with it, saying like my team members could really use this, and I could use this. I feel like he'd be a lot more receptive because, I mean, York already thinks there's an issue on his team with the way they handled that presentation, and so saying, you know, kind of going with that thought with him would be I mean, if I was York, I'd be a lot more receptive to it. So agreed.
Yeah. Let's see some of these other prompts. Oh, here's one, and I was thinking of something from the reading. It says, "What principles, if any, from this lesson's reading apply to this case?" And I just thought of something from the reading, and then it escaped me. There was a part in the reading that it talked about how when they went to go give one of the trainings to one of the teams, they're like, oh, you know what? This is great. You should give it to my supervisor. And it's like, oh, yeah, that's great. You should give it to my supervisor. And it just went up and up and up. And they kind of like were blaming upper management, saying, you know, you need these skills, you need these. This would be great so you get better. And, you know, really, I think everyone can use more training. No one's a perfect leader, but we can always become better. And so don't just target, kind of what you were saying, Tyler, don't just target York, target everyone to become better managers, better team members.
Yeah, for sure.
Anything else from the reading that you guys could relate?
I haven't thought about it really, but
I didn't even think of that.
Well, just, I mean, the court, I just went back and looked at the book real quick just to get an idea of the core number 3 capabilities. Are you relevant? Like one of the sentences is that the talents are the first dimension of competence is capabilities, the talent, skills, knowledge, capacities, and abilities we have that enable us to perform with excellence. Great thing to talk about. You know, York has some really awesome talents. He has some awesome knowledge and abilities in what he does, but there might be some skills he needs to work on. Show him that, you know, you are capable at this job. We put you in this position for a reason. We have confidence in you, which I think is another point later on in the reading. You in this position, that's why we put you there. We know will take you to another level of leadership, being able to perform in this assignment.
Yeah, I think you make a good point. There's that character and then competence. They go together to form trust. And, you know, I could see York not wanting to trust his people because he doesn't think they're competent. No, there's those errors. But then they don't want to trust him because his character, he's too harsh on them, or doesn't have a good relationship.
That's a really good point.
I was looking at the "you can change behavior" section, just where it talks about, for the most part, the difference between those who change behavior and those who don't is a compelling sense of purpose. And it talks about how purpose is like an enabling factor in the work. And I don't know, I think that kind of with the method that we determined, or that we agreed on for disciplining York, like doing an inventory kind of thing, you're being complimented initially, and then you talk about the weaknesses, and then you set goals to make those weaknesses strengths. And so, like, he's being reminded of his purpose and gonna be driven more to change the behavior. That's my thought.
I like that, because York sounds like he's pretty passionate about his job. He goes above and beyond in trying to think of new, innovative ways to perform. And I feel like realigning him on what his purpose is would really hit home with him, and he would take very well, fight even harder to be that kind of leader that can inspire others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm just looking over most of these question prompts we've kind of covered. Do you guys have any other thoughts or any other insights that you've thought of or would like to share?
Well, I just was gonna ask you guys, did you read that entire PowerPoint on the Harvard thing?
So I did go through. I didn't do all the activities. There was a couple actually that I was reading it, and it's like, directly compliment someone for what they've done, not for like who they are or that part. And I did that with my wife. She was just like making dinner, and I was reading through it. I'm like, I don't know. I thought it was kind of cool, and those steps were outlined really well.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was interesting that it took the person separately from what they were doing, and that they emphasized that you needed to address what they were doing rather than who the person is, because I think it's super easy that what the person doing is what they are, or is who they are.
Mm-hmm.
So that was super interesting. Kudos to you for complimenting your wife.
Yeah. Well, it just has that part. It's like, do this. Like, well, I'm looking at it right now. It says, do not describe what you would say, actually say it. So I'm like, okay, I might as well do it.
That's fun.
That's cool.
That's awesome. Well, and just a heads up, today is National Love Note Day. So.
Oh, really? I'll have to write one.
Oh my goodness! Thanks for that heads up.
Surprise for whoever in your life needs a love note. So I wrote one for my fiance for her to come home to, and she actually came in and threw one at me when we were first starting. So yeah, just a head.
Cute.
So you said fiance. When are you guys getting married?
November 25th.
Okay.
So that's the weekend of Thanksgiving, the Saturday after. We're pretty pumped.
Exciting.
That's in like 2 months.
Yeah, we're actually getting married in Utah. So we're both from Arizona. We both live in Arizona, but she has a lot of family in Idaho and stuff. And her uncle is a sealer in the Draper Temple. So we thought it would be cool to just get married up there.
Way cool.
Yeah.
I guess relating this to the case, I think consistent compliments, building up York, and also York to his teammates would be wise. I think everyone performs better when they feel appreciated.
Yeah.
And when they're noticed. I think, was that part of the reading that talked about that people trust you when they Let me grab the book. It was one of those special quotes.
Yeah. No, that sounds right.
It was like, people don't. Here, let me find it. Is that on the top of these pages? People just want to know that somebody knows and cares. That's what I was thinking of. On page 79. But I just thought that was true. It's like, kind of relating it back to missionary work. You know, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of goes for this situation. I mean, York doesn't care how good of a manager Mary is unless he feels like Mary cares about him, you know, and what he does.
Yeah, I really like that. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yep.
Okay, well, we got a couple more minutes. I think we've had a great discussion. You guys have brought some great insights to new insight from, you know, different than what I was thinking of, and I hope that's been the same for you guys. Any last comments before we end about the case?
I don't have anything about the case.
Did you guys submit the case already? Did you write it up?
I did.
I haven't submitted it yet. I have it has to be 1,500 words, right?
I thought it said no more.
Yeah, it's up to 1,500 words.
Oh my goodness. I was trying to make it wow. Okay, I'm done then.
No, yeah, I thought the same thing. For some reason, I thought yesterday was the 26th. So I did a ton of assignments last night, just getting them all in before whatever time they're due. And then today I got to work and I was sitting at my desk and I looked at the calendar and I was like, what the heck? Today's the 26th.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that was
turned it in.
I was just wondering how long your guys' was, because mine was, I'm looking at it, it's about 1,000 words. But I mean, the example case right up to they sent about Lance Armstrong, I think it was a little longer than mine. I'm just like, is it length that matters or is it content? And nowhere on the rubric it had a word count. So I'm like, I figured just as long as it covers. And
no, I think it's the content. I mean, they limit you to 1,500 words for a reason, because I'm sure people will just go on and on and on, and teachers like, okay, this is stupid. But I don't know, maybe our teacher's not like that. But,
yeah, I think it's content over quantity for sure, but I also think to a certain extent, you can't just do a couple of sentences no matter how good they are. Mine is around 900 words, so.
Did you guys use any references, outside references? Did you reference the book or the Harvard Business training thing? Okay, I
referenced the case study itself because and that's what it did in the example, the Lance Armstrong example. It just used the case study, so.
Yeah, that's what I did as well. I just was wondering what you guys did. Well, cool. Well, hopefully next week we'll hear from Denise and from Artie. I feel like there's a couple times in our discussion where it's it would have been good to have more perspectives. Anyways, if there's nothing else, thanks you guys for tuning in. Oh yeah, Tyler?
Were we supposed to fill out that the group leader sign-up sheet?
Oh, that's right. Thanks for mentioning that. So I actually downloaded it. How do we want to sign up? I
don't know. I think it's a tough one because Artie and Dennis aren't here.
Yeah. I guess we can at least sign up for the next two at least, and maybe next time that you're going in, we can talk about it more. This is lesson 3, so I've got this lesson. Do we have to submit this?
This video?
Yeah.
Or
Yes.
The group leader?
So, yeah, so it says, during your meeting, work with your group to complete the group leader sign-up document. Email the completed document to your instructor. Copy each group member on the email.
Okay. So, would you guys feel comfortable just like, do one of you two want to do it next week?
I wouldn't mind doing it. I don't care when I do it. I just don't really know how I need to. Is that hard?
Well, I was really familiar with it because I used it in the business law class. I took it online and we did these videos every week as well. The YouTube live steps that they have on there, they're really good. I mean, you just follow those exactly and it's really simple.
Okay.
Do you want to do it next week, Tyler? And then the week after that, you can do it, Lexi. And then I'll just fill in the table. I'll just do Artie next, and then Dennis, Dennis, and just kind of start over again. And I'll forward that to you guys.
Yeah. So Tyler, you're the first week of October, and then I'll be the second week.
Correct.
Is that what that is? Okay.
And I have everybody's email, so I can fill that part in. I'm glad you brought that up, Tyler.
Oh, way to go. Way to be on top of things. I don't even know what's going on in my life tomorrow, so.
No, either do I. I take it day by day, and this semester is crazy. I want to finish by April, but I have 30 credits that I still need, so I'm taking 15 this semester and 15 next semester, and they're all online. So, and I work a full-time job, so I get off work at like 30, and then that's like homework all night long. So.
Oh my gosh, you're a champ.
Yeah, the first like 2 weeks of school I just hate because you're not in that routine. It's like once you kind of know when assignments are due and things like that, you can relax more and
Not really sure how to prioritize like what you should do first.
So I feel like I'm finally starting to get into that groove.
Yeah, and some classes are like easier than others, and so it's like, okay, I need to put a lot of extra effort into this harder class, and because I'm gonna blow through the other one. That was like last week. I blew through like 3 of my classes, and then like the whole the end of the week, I was like struggling to finish all the assignments for the other 2, and I was just like, this is at the beginning of the week. So
yeah.
Well,
cool. I think if there's nothing else, we'll see each other next week. Thanks you guys for tuning in.
Yeah, of
sounds
course.
good.
Starting that group text, so that made it easier than the email.
Yeah, no worries.
All right, we'll see you next week.